Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have an amazing guest, Miss Maria Axente. Hello, Maria. How are you?
Hello, Andrew. I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Not so bad. And normally, actually, I do have what I would say the best backdrop, with my guests. But actually, I'm now being trumped today. I think you've beaten me today. So, what backdrop is that? It looks like a very, very eco-friendly backdrop.
It's a broccoli wall.
It's a broccoli wall. So you're going to eat it later. You're going to eat it later.
We call it the broccoli wall, but in fact, it's a preserved mousse, which is put in some sort of condition that is neither dead or alive, but it's able to purify the air. So it in fact is a wall that some of our offices at work, we have it to purify the air.
Wow.
It looks very good. It's not eatable, but purify the air.
Yeah, but you see, you could put some, get some boiling water, maybe chop some of the wall off and put it in the pan and have a chat, eat it and see what it's like.
I think it's cheaper to buy basic broccoli. This is very expensive, so you don't want to do this. Once you buy it, put it on your wall. Okay, leave it there.
Yeah, it's just like, so will somebody order some more of the wall because Maria keeps eating it? Yeah, exactly. No, it's cool. It's cool. Obviously, for people that are watching this or listening to this episode on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, they will probably not be able to see us. But if you come and see us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, then you'll see Maria in all her glory with her eco-friendly. She looks like she's in a forest with a broccoli wall, hanging out with the broccoli crew, the broccoli posse.
I always keep on saying to myself that whenever I'm going to become a millionaire, which probably might be never. I will get myself a house with broccoli walls.
Exactly. Well,
that's the standard.
Based on the cost of it, you might have to be a billionaire. Yeah.
Kind of, I think. So will be never. But at least until then, I dream.
No, don't say never. Never say never. Anyway, lovely to have you here on the episode, and thank you for giving us some time today. I'm obviously in central London, the ghost town that we live in. Because obviously everybody's locked down and everybody's like working from anywhere, not working from home, working from the beach. But I actually have over my right shoulder the lovely Shard that people can see. And if you haven't been up, it's a very nice place to go, which I know is very close to where you do work when you do go to work. We'll cover that a bit later. But I suppose to kick off the episode, then what gets you up in the morning these days, then, Maria? What's going on? What's going on in the mornings in Maria's world?
Oh, that's such a good question. Those days, it's probably a routine. And the fact that you're counting down until you are able to resume a more social life. I'm not saying we're going to go back to the life as we knew it, because I think that will change. But is to go back and being able to meet my friends, my family, my colleagues, and everyone else to that extent. So probably that's what gets me out of the bed is how many days are left until we can go back, and how can I get myself to a good state, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So then when that happens and the door is open, we can take off, because I think the excitement is building, let's say. Then I think, like many of us, I'm very, very much looking forward to be able to travel, not places like flying around the world, but just being able to meet with people and celebrate our friendship and our relationships and everything that's beautiful about humanity, right?
Yeah, I think it makes you, because I suppose this situation's made you think about that. It's made you think about what's important and what's not important, and how you spend your time. Is that what you're saying?
It's true. Yes. I think it's this time. It was a very useful time for reflection, right? So we had such a life on high speeds that we didn't have time to reflect. But where were we going? And suddenly, all of us were slowed down to put on hold for a long period of time. And I know there are many people who have and still suffering terribly from this. I think there's also a time for us to say that, to acknowledge that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And I know sometimes it sounds too much of a little bit too cheesy, but in fact it's true, right? When you on the pain of that trial has passed over, I think we owe it to ourselves to raise stronger and stand taller and see how do we take everything that we have learned during this time, including how to overcome not seeing each other and not being able to hug each other or do the things that were so basic before, and do it better and pressure it. And yes, there's still time for us to indulge in this bit of reflection, and see what really matters for us. And when we're going to go out, how we're going to change our life for the best, so that we do follow what's important for each of us. For some will be careers, for others be family, for others to explore the world or studying it. But we owe that to ourselves, to pause and think and try as much as we can to have a little bit of this behavior as we go back to our crazy hectic life in central London or in southwest London, where I am at the moment. So
everybody's going to want a broccoli wall after seeing this episode. Everybody's going to want to come in and have a broccoli wall with you, hang out in the broccoli wall.
I'm not advertising for the company to do this, by the way. They don't pay me. I wish they, so if they see this, hi, I could be your salesperson or sales rep.
This episode was sponsored by the broccoli wall. Yeah. No, but I think what you're saying is that it's a bit like a detox, it's a reset. And I suppose the wish for probably a lot of people, including myself and hopefully you as well, is about how do people take the good out of what's actually happened, and there's been a lot of not so good, and there continues to be a challenge around that stuff. But how do we change habits and behaviours going forward, and actually it makes it a better place, rather than the kind of the thing that the trajectory that things seem to be going. Because I think what I've noticed, probably you have, is that some of the things which were you could call sacred cows are now being kind of so-called virtually slaughtered, and things are changing. Yeah, like the thing that happened recently with the New York Stock Exchange and the shares and all that kind of thing that happened the other week was where that you could say the little guys and the big guys and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to get into that kind of discussion today. But it's amazing how these things are happening in this whole digital world that we're living in. So it's some of it's encouraging, some of it's obviously we've still got to do some stuff on it.
Of course. But I think that's also very exciting because we had this time to reflect, and we have seen how dependent we are on digital technologies. But what I don't think we have seen as much is how dependent we are. And that means that if someone takes it away from us, we won't be able to survive. And that's, to me, one of the areas that should raise questions to a lot of people, right? So are we not losing our humanity because we're not learning or acquiring new skills? Because, yes, Google knows it. And the other day, a friend of mine told me that his 7-year-old daughter, she refuses to learn stuff because she keeps on saying, but I'll ask Alexa, and Alexa will tell me what I need to know. And that kind of makes you wonder, are we raising a generation that will be incapable,
like a dependency culture?
A dependency culture, yes, incapable to navigate without having the right props. And how will that play in the evolution of humanity? On one hand, we get very excited that now we have AI that can crunch high volume of data, but we haven't really looked at the downsides, all the implication, the ecological costs that this training those big models bring, the high dependency, the behavior modification, the behavior change, the loss of agency. And maybe that's something for us to reflect once we're able to get a healthy distance from our screens and tech as we go out and go back in nature and enjoy nature walls, not just broccoli walls indoors. And, being able to reflect. Are we not missing a lot by just being indulged in digital world? Don't we want to still experience with our hands and with all our five senses what happens around us?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, it's 1989. Was it 1989 when Tim Berners-Lee brought the internet to bear? And I know I mentioned this on a previous episode. You know that he's creating an internet 2.0. You know about that, I presume, because he's obviously observing that some things are maybe not going in the way that he originally hoped they would do when he created the internet. So, yeah, it's interesting as well. I mean, when you were talking as well about this thing about humanity, so one of my previous guests is an absolute rock star like yourself. He's a guy called Joe Toscano, who you may have heard of. He was the guy that wrote Automating Humanity, the book, a few years ago. And he joined me from Brazil. He was in Brazil, actually, at the time when he joined the episode.
I bet. Which
is quite nice. Obviously not if you're in Brazil today, it's quite difficult because you can't get back to the UK. But anyway, he was also involved in the film that came out on Netflix last year, The Social Dilemma. So he was one of the creators of that. So, some of the stuff you were just talking about there about, how do you put the humans back into into the humankind. If you've watched that video or that movie, if you've not watched it, I recommend you watch it, because it is absolutely mind blowing when you read or when you watch some of those scenes, the family scenes at the table with the lockbox and everything like that. You've probably seen it. So, it's food for a lot of people to think about. Are we going?
True.
What there's tech and there's too much tech, and there's getting the balance right, I suppose.
I think. No, I did watch Social Dilemma, and to be honest, with my ethical AI hat on, I don't think I like it. Actually, no, I don't like it much. I have to recognize the benefit that it has raised the awareness for the general public on topics like this. But the way it was produced, it was rather disappointing, right? So that we still have the same tech guys that created all this problem appearing some sort of a saviors in the film and portrayed like that. It was disturbing, to say the least. And many advocates.
Why do you say they were portrayed as saviors?
Because they were there to give their account and almost like parade themselves how they left Google and now they have their own companies, but in the same time saying, oh, but you know what, we're not sending our kids to schools with tech. And by the way to fight it is you turn off your notification. And I think throughout the whole documentary, I got this feeling of them boasting about how good they were because they built something as big that is posing a challenge to humanity. And it's not just me.
Well, I think it's
about it, but
I think
we can go on about Social Dilemma, and I don't want us to divert.
No. I think what I was saying was it was kind of like it was a trigger when you were talking. It was a trigger in my mind just to kind of open up that. I'm not saying open up that Pandora's box, but obviously just talk to you about it. But the thing is, what he said to me was, with me, spending quite a few decades in technology and just falling into it a few decades ago. And then not realizing until recently, obviously, the social and impact. And I've got two teenage sons, and I see their behaviors. So you start to think about, okay, what is the, back to the thing about, the Viking phrase, do the right thing, Dorath, do the right thing. And, I agree there was definitely in that film, there was certain things that were being discussed, which you could say are, needs to be addressed. What is the next step around addressing those things rather than just talking about them and showboating a little bit and saying how brilliant they were? It's also about what you're going to do to change the things and make sure you manage it and govern it.
And to change that, but it was not obvious from the documentary.
There's still a long way to go, I think. But I think what the point you made about actually raising the awareness in the general public and more, a wider audience that are outside that industry about what actually was going on and is going on. The issue is about one of the lines that I heard was about, can they keep it in check? Is it a runaway train now? So it's like, how do you manage it, and how do you bring in place the appropriate controls and governance and oversight? That's my I suppose my challenge with watching that film.
I think that's the biggest challenge of all. How do you manage something that you know so little about? And I was discussing earlier with with another group, the fact that AI is this hairy beast that will ended up producing some unintended consequences, and we are so unprepared for it, right? So, and if you look at Social Dilemma, in fact, some of the former YouTubers and Googlers, they were mentioning that and say, I remember one of the guys working in YouTube saying, I am so surprised on the behavior of the algorithm. I did not expect it to see that. And I feel that this is one area that we need to be studying or understanding a little bit more. Can we at least anticipate, based on what we have seen so far with Facebook and Google, what more likely this unexpected behavior will be when AI starts to behave as an entity, as a large technology system, rather than a general purpose technology, which is probably the preferred framing at the moment. Because I think that's what Social Dilemma has shown, and the fact that when AI is at scale, behaves very differently than anything else we have known before, and it tends to be quite unpredictable. And if you look at the papers that the paper that triggered the demise of Dr. Gebber from Google, the message is the same. You know, large language models have to have different characteristics and behavior. And I think this is something that we need to be understanding, not just AI, proof of concept or small discrete application or what we call boring AI. Look deeper in what happens at a Facebook, where they collect so much and crunch so much data, and what sort of a behavior the algorithm display were not intended or were not programmed to. And how do we work about it? It feels like it's almost like a bit of a catch-22, especially at Facebook, and especially with the moderating of content. That is one of the unintended consequences that was not really anticipated. So you're right. Maybe Social Dilemma has alerted enough people so that at least now we have a little bit more awareness that the technology of today comes with strings attached, and we need to be much more careful and design, deploy, and use it very differently than we have done it before, including the governance, including being prepared for unintended results, including being learning from cybersecurity and cyber preparedness on how to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, what you're saying is kind of opened up the dialogue. It's opened up the discussion. I think that's, talking to Joe after the Social Dilemma was actually released. He just feels like, his mission has been to raise the awareness and get changes done. Because, when he was at Google, he felt that it's a bit like, was the right thing and right decisions being made. So, I think, you can't flick a switch and get all these things sorted out tomorrow. But to your point, it sounds like the consciousness of the world, as from the Social Dilemma film and the stuff that the Beacon, the company he works with now, is it can hopefully the thing is how you get good out of it. Yeah, it's that thing about tech for good rather than tech for not so good. So anyway, we jumped into the T section of the G and T sessions pretty quickly. But I suppose one of the things on the G side, I suppose, was, could you explain a bit about your background and what you are working on today? Because I think, as if the audience listens to that and understands that, I think people will realise why I would wanted to have you as a guest, because I think some of the stuff that you're working on is absolutely amazing. So it'd be useful to get a bit of a segue on that, if that's possible.
Of course. So probably I'll start with where I am at the moment. So I work for a big professional services company. Name is PwC, but it's not about my company. It's more about my work today. And I'm fortunate enough to sit in the AI Center of Excellence, which is a central function where we brought together different skills, technical and non-technical, with the view of building innovative products with technologies under the umbrella of AI, but also how to support the transformation of a business that is a non-tech business, professional services, and being able to recognize and use technology to disrupt in a positive manner a business model that it's very human intensive, right? And I was there from the beginning, the inception of the Center of Excellence, and gradually I started to focus a lot on the ethical and responsible issues of building technologies. How do we understand what this technology is, and what its behavior is, and how does it disrupt for the good and for the bad the processes that ends up being deployed to operate within. And I started working with research institutes, universities out there, Cambridge, Oxford, but also think tanks and various other organizations like World Economic Forum, and crafting a narrative around ethical and responsible AI, so that when we collectively come together and create policies or inform the regulation or create internal documents and framework, we are all aware of all the different angles that can be considered when we build a technology as unique as AI. And well, my role spreads on very different levels. One being working with my data science team to build products and services. I also work with our clients team to do the same, to make sure that whenever clients are considering using AI in the current fields of work, we add all those considerations of embedding ethics, end-to-end governance and risk management from the beginning in what they do. And the last focus is obviously collaborating with external partners, policymakers, researchers, regulators, and advocates to promote the various the topics under the ethical and responsible AI, and be able to shape opinion and raise awareness on those topics externally. And how did I come to this? It was an opportunity that was offered to me while I was doing my consulting work in PwC, and it was the most exciting journey I've ever had to date in my career, to be able to work with a technology so exciting, but also so intriguing, and that raises so many different challenges that we haven't had before.
I mean, so what you're saying is that you've actually been kind of like one of the, I suppose you could say, founders of the Artificial Intelligence Centre of Excellence within PwC. Is that right?
It's a big word, founders, but yes.
Co-founders.
Co-founders. For the UK firm, yes. And especially on the work I'm doing on responsible AI, it's indeed pioneering for the firm, because I was looking to bring together the experience that a company operating in professional services has about business in general, the business operation and strategy, and match it with knowledge around building tech like this for a complete picture, if you want. And that was something quite unique. And hopefully we're able to inspire others to have this rounded approach. The fact that it's not just about data scientists or machine learning engineers, that they need to be present when we build AI. There are many other experts that need to be in the room, and their opinion needs to be considered when we do this.
And I suppose the question for me on that would be is about, when you say, I mean, obviously some people understand what AI is, some people don't understand what AI is, which we'll come back to, but you called it also responsible AI. What's responsible AI versus AI, or is that something you could explain?
Responsible AI is the only way to do AI, end of story. So if it's not responsible, we should not touch it, because ultimately responsible AI is about comprehending the benefits and the risks that this technology brings, and being able to design and operate it according with maximization of benefits, and while mitigating the risks and harms. I think if you look at the term responsible AI is now being used across the board, from big tech companies all the way to supranational organizations like Global Partnership on AI, or even United Nations organization. But more or less, everyone aims, understands the same thing. Responsible AI is an application of use of AI that consider its impact and not only focusing on delivering a benefit or optimizing a goal that's being given, understands the context where this AI operates. The way I use it more narrowly to actually being able to work and create a new mindset when we approach this technology is to say that responsible AI has to have 3 layers from a process perspective. Everything I described so far was from an outcome perspective. Yes, the outcome has to be aligned with the set of values, but also being able to maximize the good and minimize the bad. But from a process perspective, which is the other angle you can describe responsible AI, is that we have to look beyond the development of tech itself and think about 3 other more layers. One is understanding what core values and ethical principles need to be embedded across the life cycle. Second one, being able to have a governance structure around it, because AI, one of the major differences between AI and other technologies is that you have to have a different way of governing, to operating it, which is very different from everything that we have known before. The fact that you have to bring together more different stakeholders and with different new roles and responsibility to be able to operate that, and also being able to monitor its behavior on during its lifetime. But lastly, I think the one layer that is terribly ignored those days is the risk management. The fact that AI, like no other technology, comes with its own set of risks, from risk of discrimination to instability, to inaccuracy, and many others. AI has a significant impact on the current risk, organizational risk, and meaning that it tends to augment those risks. So, for example, take the famous Amazon recruitment tool that kept the headline, and it became almost like a use case for bias in recruitment. What that has shown is not only the limitation of technologies like AI to address current biases in a human structure, but what that proved, it could have been detrimental to the reputation of Amazon, right? As an employer that stands for diversity and inclusion, and with that, even for less people from different backgrounds and characteristics to apply for the firm. And those risks of AI, it's something that certain industries like financial services, for example, they're better prepared to handle it, because risk management is a very mature discipline in financial services. But everywhere else, it's an alien discipline. But AI requires this identification and acknowledgement and mitigation of risks very early on, so that we are not in situation that we deploy something and further down the line we see, as has happened the case in Netherlands, right? So you had millions of people who were discriminated by the social system because an algorithm was used, and that triggered the resignation of the government in the middle of a pandemic. So I think the responsible AI needs to look at AI from different angles.
So it's a bit like it's like the kind of the human oversight, the piece around don't let, so when you were talking, I was just thinking about the Terminator movie, like Skynet and Rise of the Machines. I mean, maybe I'm trying to make it a bit too Hollywood this episode, but obviously maybe not. but it does raise a thing about if you let the technology run away with itself and not be managed and governed by people who can see the data, but also see the implications of it, then you're saying then you're not going to be in a great place. So designing new capabilities.
It's true. And I think
designing new capabilities for companies that you're doing now and transformation, where probably every C-suite and every CEO wants to say, oh, this AI stuff, it sounds really fantastic. Let's have some. Yeah. Let's go and buy some. Let's go and engage with people to help us do it. But then you're saying it's how you design and augment and you leverage the technology in the right way to make sure you don't, because there's a brand implication, there's a whole organization, an example of Amazon is an employee reputation implication there.
Exactly.
Wow.
There are many other risks, societal risks that AI poses that are not really now accounted for by organizations developing or using AI. And I really love the term that Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, is using, which is the extended responsibility. That's looking at what is our shared responsibility when we look at automating, for example, a business function or certain areas within an industry. What will be the societal effect that this type of action will trigger? And what's the individual responsibility of all those different actors to those massive societal problems, right? Is very much as you'd say, if you look at the climate change, who has triggered it, right? Who exactly releases most CO2 in the atmosphere, and have a little bit of responsibility assigned to those actors, so that when we start solutionizing, we know who should play the most important role because they were part of the problem, generating the problem in the first place.
So is it all those tech companies then with all these servers that are all in the cloud creating all the CO2?
It wasn't us that wanting to travel around the world for every single holiday and for us to have avocado at every meal that actually put a strain on the environment. I wonder. I don't know. I mean, I'm just asking because I know little about this subject, but.
Well, the good thing today, you see, is because obviously, you're in your broccoli wall or broccoli place, in London, and obviously, normally I use my G&T session sponsored helicopter, or I did a session in Toronto the other week. I had to use a Learjet, so obviously I've not had to use a lot of CO2 today. I'm not damaged the atmosphere too much because I'm only in London Bridge. It's good. This is
I'm purifying the air with my.
This is a very eco-friendly episode. You see, this is the eco-friendly episode with Maria.
Yes.
So, just a quick question. I suppose. Thank you for going through that. I mean, the stuff that you're doing. You're doing stuff with the World Economic Forum. You're doing stuff with Cambridge and Oxford. You've been a kind of a groundbreaker in this stuff, and obviously, as you mentioned, even people, working for the tech titans, like Brad, you mentioned. Obviously, you have to wake up to the fact that they have to, they can't just keep sell and not taking the responsibility for things. But how did you get involved in this area? Because I mean, it's a very hot area. I mean, did you just fall into it, or what did you do a degree in it, or you got a PhD? I mean, how did you fall into this cauldron of AI?
I fell into it. It was an opportunity that came my way. 4 years ago, and I embrace it. I mean, I was aware of many emerging technology, including AI, before I started focusing on AI mainly, because I came with a digital transformation and strategy background. As a result, you would see all those different technology and try to assess or anticipate how they will impact a certain business and being able to prepare the business for that disruption. But at some point, I acknowledge that it's not enough. I mean, it's you won't be able to progress much if you remain a generalist when it comes to digital transformation. And I felt the need to specialize. And this opportunity came my way, and me focusing on the responsible AI, it just grew with my work. Also, probably because I'm quite passionate about leaving a social legacy, not only a materialistic legacy. And I was always interested, how can I contribute in my little bubble to the welfare of the people around me. And I found myself very much attracted by the narrative around ethical AI, and the fact that it was even few years back, it was still very much the realm of academics. And the journey we have took in the last 4 years was to be able to take that groundbreaking research and being able to convert it in a language that is accessible for the companies who are now in the midst of using AI. And that was exciting because required to work with very talented and well-respected academics in the field, like people like Luciano Floridi or Joanna Bryson or Virginia Dignum, and bring together our expertise, diverse expertise from business, technology, and public policy, and put it alongside their knowledge and expertise, and craft a narrative and a story that will help the decision makers that are less prepared to read academic papers to be able to act in good faith. And it was an extraordinary, there have been some extraordinary last few years by coming together in this AI community, especially here in UK. We are very, very lucky to be geographically very close to each other. So therefore, we had the benefit of attending many events and getting to know each other and working with each other while being from very different backgrounds, from central government to parliament to academia to think tank and industry itself, and develop this shared understanding, which I think it's incredibly beneficial and rounded, and puts Britain in a unique position globally in understanding how to best approach this technology with its implication.
So are you encouraged by that? I mean, it sounds like
yes.
you've got some really good engagement on this topic, and you've actually got a lot of different stakeholders from different areas of public and private enterprise that are kind of stepping up. Is that what you're seeing?
I'm very much encouraged by the uptake in the UK mainly, and then how this has raised the awareness in different parts of the world. So up till very recently, obviously, us in Europe were the same thing. But I think a lot of those initiatives have originated here, and also due to the phenomenal work of people like Luciano and Joanna. And the fact that in 2017, Theresa May was the one, she came back from Davos after she has heard the conversation around automation as a result of Schwab book on the subject. And one of her statements, which was at first was taking a little bit as a joke by many, was Britain should lead in the world of AI with responsible AI. And check this out, right? Everyone is talking about responsible AI, and as being the norm. As I said, the only way to build AI is responsibly. If it's not done so, we shouldn't do it at all. And UK is the only other country alongside Singapore that has a department within the government that's called Center for Data Ethics and Innovation that advises the policy, public policy, but also works with the regulators how to incorporate those societal implications in everything that has to do with AI. And that's very encouraging because why
do you think that's happened in the UK? What's your I mean, because obviously, I mean, you're not originally from the UK. You've got an international background. You weren't born here.
I'm Romanian, yes.
You're Romanian, yeah. And but then what you're saying is that you're saying that from where Count Dracula came, didn't you? I think you said.
Indeed.
It's great. I love it.
Only he's a fictional character. So
is he?
Everyone.
I've seen all the movies. I've seen all the Hollywood movies. I thought he was real.
And actually, what's even funnier is my village is from in the area that's mentioned in the book. So
you can't shatter
none of my grandparents.
Maria, you can't shatter everybody's illusion. You know, she watched all those Hollywood movies, and you know what's that? What are those cartoon ones? The Transylvania ones. You know, the cartoon ones that are done.
Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah,
yes.
they're brilliant with the monsters. I love them. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm not going to shatter anyone's perception.
We'll have to edit that bit out. You know, where you told them that stuff that Dracula didn't exist. Yeah. Okay.
I'm still going to say it 1,000 times. He's a fictional character.
Oh.
And he's ruining my reputation on my country, which is such a beautiful place, full of talented people.
No,
very good at tech, by the way.
He's just got the most PR. That's all. He's got a good PR manager. Yeah.
I prefer to have no PR on Dracula than no PR at all, rather than PR with Dracula. So put it like this.
Okay. But we'll move back onto the responsible AI topic then.
Yes.
That was a slight interlude. No, but that's what I was going to say with you was, why do you think the UK? You know, what's happened, or is there somebody that's been championing and sponsoring it that's really made it get momentum? Any particular view on that?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I haven't really reflected upon it. I think this is again a personal view on the matter. I think there are two reasons here. One is the fact that we had the benefit of extensive research in the UK's universities on the topic. And as I said, I keep on mentioning the name of Professor Luciano Floridi at Oxford University, but he's an absolute titan in the field, right? So he came up with the term of philosophy of information, and the fact that we are now in an age where we're transitioning from the power over goods on power over information about decision and action around those goods. That's what Luciano has said. And having this solid academic thinking and research in the field, it put us in a very, very good position. But then the second key element was this political move that came from Theresa May, that she said in 2017, after she came back from Davos, let's look into how can we use AI to boost UK economy. And in that field, she commissioned this white paper that was produced by Dame Wendy Hall, the famous Wendy Hall, and Jerome Presetti, gathered together a very diverse group of stakeholders in the UK around AI. And that was the fact, I would say, the first few actions in how it's building an AI ecosystem of people with diverse backgrounds. They came together to shape this. So I feel like those two actions, the strong academic foundation plus this political decision and that white paper have been fundamental to the way we in UK perceive AI, and the fact that UK has been a leading voice in responsible AI, and then Canada and France, and now more recently everyone, all the big, all the countries have or not the national strategy are talking about the topic of responsible AI. So is the academic background, is a political decision, but also is the coming together and this positive energy and enthusiasm that all those different experts have brought together to shape this agenda, have put Britain in this position.
So it's like a perfect storm.
It is, but perfect storms are not. I would say that in this case was a little bit orchestrated, and I know that Theresa May is still a very contested political figure in the UK, but at least from this perspective, she has done something phenomenal, right? She sponsored it and she made it happen, basically.
Yeah,
indeed, and that's what you need.
It's like the Spice Girls, and it's girl power. That's what it is.
It is very much girl power when it comes to AI in the UK. If you look at the some of the main figures in AI in the UK are women, right? So the head of the Office of AI from the UK government, Sana Karigani. She's a fantastic lady. Her job is to help the government make sense of AI, right? And there are so many others in the research and industry. And I don't want to name many other names because I don't want to miss anyone else. But
no, I understand.
Go and check it out. Lots of girl power in AI in UK.
Hey, you're going to form a pop band now. It's going to be the AI band, yeah? And you have like a signature. You have a signature tune. You have to do a dance. You have to do a dance on TikTok.
We'll use AI to create the music, right? We will just be the pretty faces, yeah. So exactly. AI will generate everything.
You can do that rapping. You know, you can do that rapping. I want to. You know, I've got to set you a little goal for 2021. I want to see videos on TikTok of you dancing, all the AI team. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of. That's for a different conversation.
Okay, no problem. Okay, I'll get you back later, Maria. You know, I'm just good. All right, what else? What other? Oh, right, YouTube. You'll have to do your dancing on YouTube like I've done.
Okay, I'll think about it. I'm not just saying that I'm going to jump on the challenge. Maybe
I've got videos. I'm on some videos on YouTube that have got 280,000 views. Afrobeats dancing. I'm doing dancing to Afrobeats and dancing to Bollywood music. I have. It's true.
Okay, I believe you.
I'll send you links afterwards. You know, we can do a dance later. So I suppose part of your journey, I know you jumped over that because I know you've been talking a lot about the work you're doing is and thanks for explaining, you know, how you kind of fell into this stuff. I mean, one of the things we talk about on the G&T Sessions podcast is about peaks and valleys. So, you know, in terms of, you know, your learning and your journey so far, you know, obviously people, you know, like to share their kind of peaks, the things that were on plan, the things that worked out, the goals that they achieved. But also people, you know, like to sometimes also, you know, be open up and share about their kind of valleys, you know, what was a plan and what didn't quite work out. So, I mean, have you got any stories and thoughts around that you'd like to share?
Yeah, certainly. I'm from Romania, and I spent my first professional years after university in Bucharest. And then I had a very successful career. I would have run businesses, transformed businesses, set up my own business. And when I decided to come to UK for the MBA, I left everything behind me, and I had to start from the ground zero here. And to a certain extent, I don't feel like I've in the last 11 years I've been here, I was able to recoup that from a certain perspective. I know I've done a lot and I've learned tremendously, but coming here for my MBA and having to leave a successful career behind, it was difficult. I jumped straight away in my MBA class, and I had to adjust to a new country, new friends, struggling to find a job, to be honest, because at the time when I arrived in UK, Romanian and Bulgarian citizens still had restriction of how many hours you'd be able to work. So as a student, I was restricted to a part-time work, and it was quite difficult for me to find opportunities that will allow me to continue my education while I made a living and continue to craft my professional path. So that was quite difficult, and it was stretching and taking me out of all my comfort zones in every single aspect of my life. But I'm very glad I've done it, because that was the moment when I enter or embrace the world of consulting and technology in general. And I've never looked back, because an MBA experience, like any postgraduate experience, is very, very intense. And that intensity, if you know how to use it, transform you as an individual. And while it was really difficult, I will do it 1,000 times and more, because I know what I got out of it. The second one, I think it's not as profound and as dramatic like my me moving to UK in 2010. But it's the struggle with the domain of ethics itself, right? The fact that it's still a domain that's being seen as an add-on for the computer science world, and it's not being considered strategically by the C-suite, who haven't yet to acknowledge the fact that ethical and responsible AI is for on short term a competitive advantage, and whomever will understand this, they will be leading when responsible AI will become mainstream, and some elements will be heavily regulated by regulators around the world. So while this is a little bit different because it's not a personal challenge, it's more of a challenge within my field. It's still a challenge. The fact that we have to convince or we have to work with both the technical community and business communities to demonstrate ourselves and the value ethical reasoning and analysis will bring to building and designing and using AI.
So what you say, but your first point, where you were saying that the struggles around the transition between different countries, yeah, and then the second point was about, you see in your work that the kind of, we're on a journey. We're not kind of it's kind of thing about people don't see the relevance of the work you're working on, which is what you're saying is a challenge and a hurdle.
It's true. It's not necessarily they don't see it. They don't consider it as is important for their work. They still think it's a nice to have somewhere in the corner, but not central to their efforts.
And does that frustrate you?
Sometimes it frustrates me, but most of the time I see it as a challenge, right? Because what we're doing here it's pioneering, groundbreaking work. So maybe that, I would say, in bringing the two together, I think it excites me more than frustrates me. Because, I come from Romania. I'm up for a challenge all the time. So when you come from that part of the world and you grew up in a communist country, ex-communist country, you have a inbuilt resilience and determination. And that's probably very, very useful because that's what we need. We have a huge task ahead of us. And we have to learn how to manage our frustration and go over it and beyond it and say, I'm just going to do it because I know myself and few others that this is the right thing to do. And just because we encounter some resistance, it doesn't mean that we're going to stop and not doing it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an admirable facet to your journey. Is keep going, keep kicking the door in. Hi-ya! It's like karate kid. Karate. It's like wah wah wah.
Something on those lines.
Okay,
right?
so maybe not.
Imagine
exactly.
fighting with the vampires, right? So
oh god,
you use your garlic.
Okay.
You're not going to touch me. You're not going to touch me.
You're bringing that up now. I'd moved on from there. I didn't want to bring it up again. You give me a hard time about that. No, I'm joking. So I suppose we're now in a new decade, and I suppose you obviously talk very passionately about the work that you are working on, which shows that you're obviously excited and you're seeing some real breakthroughs. I suppose what one of the things I was going to ask you, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for, in your world today?
I don't want to sound too emotional, but I'm very grateful for my family and friends and the care and affection I'm surrounded by from so many different people. And I'm also grateful that I've received so much support and help and and care from people beyond my immediate inner circle. And I think to me that's the greatest thing every human can have and be grateful for is the other people, the people in our lives. Because without them, and maybe this is one of those times when you can't see each other, to acknowledge how much we mean for each other. And it doesn't matter how many material goods we have around us. And even if we can go and have experiences, if we can't physically share this with people, it's not like we cannot share with each other right now, but it's not the same. The virtual social interaction will never ever substitute the beauty of face-to-face interaction. So to me, that's what I'm most grateful for, the people in my life and their support. And all I do every day is to not to pay back, because in love, payback is not a thing, but be at least a fraction of repay that kindness to themselves and others. How do you change the world? You start by being a good person and doing this for the people around you, and then the world will definitely be better. The only time when the world is going in the wrong, to be selfish and think only about ourselves and our little bubbles we have created. But we start thinking about beyond our bubbles, like the work we're doing with AI. We have a chance. We have a good chance.
Thank you. That was very, very, very authentic in what you said there. And I think, a lot of people listening to this episode will relate to what you just said. Thank you.
I hope so. And maybe that's why this whole experience in the past year is a useful experience. I wouldn't say it's a good experience, but it's a useful experience. Because maybe it's a very good reminder of how much we mean to each other. And I just hope we will never forget, at least all of us that are alive and perfectly aware of who we are, we will not forget this for the rest of our lives.
I agree.
The importance of people in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it should improve. My hope, and probably your hope as well, is that it improves. Post, and I don't know, will there ever be a time post-pandemic? I suppose that's the thing. I don't have a question mark about that, but I think the world hopefully will be a better place. But I know hope is not a strategy, but let's make it a better place.
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because there's something in the air. I don't know how to describe it, but from what I hear from other people is that excitement is building up for us to spread our wings and fly again, but we will fly more responsibly this time, and maybe think twice before we buy from global sources and fly all the time when we can, have that business meeting over Zoom, and many other things that are not as disruptive to our lives, but in fact, if you aggregate the impact, it's going to be significant in a positive way for the planet. So yeah, I'm hoping. Probably the jury is still out, and if this is a lasting effect or not. But at least we pause a little bit, and we see that actually it's snowing in London. That means that maybe us traveling less and using less airplanes is a little bit restoring the balance in nature. When was the last time we had winter snowing during this time of the year and proper winter temperature? So I don't know. I'm just making those random connections. But
I've been in Romania, in Bucharest, in January and February, and it's like 20 feet deep snow. So I'm not looking forward to that. Otherwise, I'd have to have a big shovel. We'd be digging igloos and stuff like that.
It's after a while, after you get used with it, it's pretty fun.
Okay.
No problem at all. And driving on snow, again, if you have the right tires.
If you got some chains on, yeah, it's good for skiing. I suppose
actually, as long as you don't have a back wheel car like a BMW, you're safe.
Otherwise, you'd be spinning 360s. Yeah, exactly. I suppose one of the final things I want to ask you about was about, given your journey, and you're obviously working on some really groundbreaking stuff, and I know you talked about your journey. What if you were talking to your, younger self kind of thing, or you were explaining, what are the things you've learned? Well, would there be kind of any guidance, any pearls of wisdom, any advice to your younger self that you would say to that person today? Anything you've got any thoughts around that?
For some reason, I really like this question because I wish it would be possible. And because it's not possible, that's why I'm focusing on my mentoring activities. I don't do it formally. I just form professional friendships with younger women. And instead of saying it to a younger self, which I don't have access to, I say it to all those women. I think having self-confidence is really important. I think I was drawn back for a long time from doing many things earlier because I lacked self-confidence, and I didn't have around me people who will help me to build that self-confidence. And some will say it has to do with the fact that I come from Eastern Europe and I came to Western Europe, and there's this country complex or inferiority complex that I'm not going to hide it. Many of us have it. Or had to do that I was a woman stepping into so many unknown territory. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I think having that assurance and reassurance that you have some talents that are there to be exploited and you can use them to build something awesome. It's the best starting in life anyone can have. But I would say that that needs to be in check and balance, because we also don't want to build overconfidence, and with that to get the superiority complex. But to my younger self, I would want to have. I wish I would have had more confidence in my own abilities and my own qualities. I hope many other young women, maybe, and especially the ones that are starting the journey in tech, will feel empowered. And for any of you guys listening or watching, if you are ever in need of a mentor or good advice, here I am. You can always find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and more than happy to share with you the experience I had and being able to work together on some of the issues I'm sure I've had when I was younger, and I would have benefited a lot by having a little bit more support and mentorship at the time.
So what you're saying is that's something that you've learned as you got older and you've been further down your journey that could have helped you more if you'd have kind of... Yes,
and true. But I was also lucky to have some people that were friends at work. They were not really mentors. They helped me boost that confidence. Mm. I know that that's critical. It's more important than the opportunities that are you put out there, the work you're doing, because you can work very hard. You can have the right opportunity in front of you, but if you lack confidence, self-confidence, you can't really do much.
Mm. So having that sounding...
But on the other hand, if you do have confidence, you can create your own influences.
So having that sounding board, yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today. It's been a whistle-wide tour around the broccoli wall. We've been to Dracula's castle. And obviously
thank you very much for having me.
And then we talked about artificial intelligence. So, So I know that...
Quite through a force, but yes, a little bit about Dracula, but not much. Because he's not real. This too many times.
It was real in my world, but until you smashed my dreams, you see, I was thinking about getting Dracula on a future episode of the G&T Sessions podcast. Obviously, that's going to be quite difficult, I think. Anyway,
let's try with Sophia. Maybe that's the Sophia the robot.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's a good idea. Yeah, maybe we'll have to talk about that later. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Maria. That was Maria Axente, and we will share contacts information about how we can get hold of Maria to talk about and understand more about her journey on when we publish the episode. But I really appreciate your time, and I think all power to your mission and your journey in the future. And yeah, I mean, I think you have got a little bit of confidence now, and you know, all power to you in what happens in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a fun conversation with my broccoli wall and the picture of my office behind you.
Mine's boring compared to yours. Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit this video and get rid of the boring backdrop. You see, it's much more interesting. Thank you very much. This has been Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Have a lovely day. Thank you.